Atma Namaste and a very, very warm welcome to this space of love. We long to love and to be loved. And one of the beautiful things about the teachings and practices is that they invite, evoke, and open us to these beautiful and truly natural states of mind. The love that can get covered by our ambition or our fear, our shame, our pride or plans or difficulties and things like that. And they allow us to see the world with eyes of love. To see with the eyes of love, it's an amazing thing, you know. The Buddhist image is of a mother holding her only child. But it's also a power. I mean, there may be a few of those stories, but they are true of mothers lifting cars off their children. So there is something about the power of love that is unstoppable, unquenchable. And the point in spiritual practice isn't to become a perfect person, to perfect our personality or our body or those kind of things, but really to perfect our love, which is the love of this mysterious incarnation with its 10,000 joys and its 10,000 sorrows. You know, there's a Zen poet, Roykan, and he summed it up when he said, and let me just read to you what he wrote. The rain has stopped, the clouds have drifted away, and the weather is clear again. If your heart is pure, then all things in your world are pure. Then the moon and flowers will guide you along the way. So all spiritual teachings, all practices are really pointless if we cannot love. Even the most exalted states and the most exceptional spiritual accomplishments are unimportant if we cannot be happy in the most basic and ordinary ways, if with our hearts we cannot touch one another and the life we've been given. So really at the very center of spiritual life are three very simple questions. Did I love well? Did I live fully? Did I learn to let go? So really to get to know ourselves is therefore a very important element of true love. Now someone asked a Zen master, Katagiri Roshi, shortly before he died if he could tell her the essence of Zen practice. So the Zen master, he picked up the cup that was next to his bed and then haphazardly placed it down on the table and said, "You can do things like that." Or he picked it off the table again, held it in his two hands, and then placed it down really beautifully and with gentle care. And he continued. He said, "Or you can do them like that." And that was his teaching. This kind of care, this kind of respect is the ground for spiritual living. And this respectful attention brings connection, ease, and healing in our life. And that is why in all mindfulness practices, we are invited to bring care to our breath, to our walking, to develop awareness of the body, mind, heart, and the dharma, or the laws of nature. If you've noticed, when you're angry, you breathe differently. You know, your breathing pattern is different, right? When you're sad, you breathe differently. When you're anxious, you breathe differently. When you're sick, you breathe differently. And even when you're dying, there's a certain breathing pattern that the doctors can listen to and know the time is closing. So, to get to know our breath is to get to know ourselves, to get to know our heart, to get to know our mind. No one can know us this intimately. You know, the intimacy that we seek, that we thirst for, that we long for, that we crave for, is not outside. It's in every part of our body. Everything about us tells us about us. So when we learn to come back to the breath, just like we learn to come back to the steps, if you observe your steps, you will notice that your steps sound differently when you're angry. Your steps sound and feel differently when you're sad, when you're insecure. And when you're stable, they are different. So everything about our body tells us about ourselves, you see. So without being aware of our body, we cannot be aware of our mind. And then without being aware of our mind, we cannot really take care of ourselves. We cannot take care of our perceptions. Now, our perception could be us as victims or as perpetrators. We cannot really know when we are truly in love or we are just craving, we are just looking for distraction. So, you know, all these practices, whether it's mindful breathing or mindful walking or mindful eating, or even deep relaxation, all of that is to help us to befriend our body. Because the body is something that we can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can taste, we can touch, we can perceive. And as we come to know our body, we'll be able to know our mind, our thoughts, our feelings, which are more abstract and yet they manifest all over our body. So as we practice stopping and deep looking, we learn true love is here. So now coming back to where we left last week, today we are going to focus on the second element of true love the Buddha taught about is Karuna, compassion. The literal meaning of Karuna means to alleviate suffering. It means the intention and the capacity to relieve the suffering. But I would like to translate that as healing. And what does that mean? In true love, there must be healing for ourselves and for others. Some of you might know this already, just like the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, he went through the Vietnam War, and that war brought a lot of suffering. And he left Vietnam to call for peace and to seek healing in himself. And because of that healing that he experienced, that he cultivated in himself, he was able to share with others so that others, like we all, can also experience healing as well. So if you love or if you feel somebody loves you and you are wounded each day, you feel insecure, you feel hurt, you feel neglected, misunderstood, or unacknowledged, is that true love? You can ask yourself. Then it's not true love. In true love, there must be healing. And also we learn that when we learn to heal our relationship with ourselves, we also help to heal the relationships that we have with others. So the self and the other are not separate. So again, this goes back to the teaching, to the wisdom of interbeing. Whatever we do to ourselves, we are doing to others, and vice versa. Now, a lot of our suffering is caused by wrong perceptions. And what do I mean by that? Just an example. The eyes look at the tree, but it is the mind that will see, oh, that tree reminds me of a time I sat there with somebody I loved. What a wonderful tree. Or the eyes will look at the tree, and it's the mind that thinks that tree has a lot of bugs. The bugs are going to bite me. Stay away from that tree. Or that person. Oh, wow, I love that person. I cannot live without that person. And then a year or a couple years later, I cannot even be with that person being around me. That person makes me so angry, causes me so much suffering. Now it's still the same person, but it's the state of mind that is different. And so the reality will become different, and that is why we learn to take care of our mind, to take care of the mind so that our perception is not distorted. So this practice of stopping and deep looking in our daily life is very, very important. We learn to quiet our mind. We learn to clear our mind, help our mind to become spacious. Why do we do that? So that the perception that we have comes to as close to the reality as possible. And we've already seen that a lot of suffering takes place not only because of what happened to us, but because of our perception. So it's always good to go and check our perceptions. You know, the other day you said this. Can you tell me why you said that? And you would have noticed you said that quite unkindly. Why did you say this? Now, if we practice deep looking, we will realize that it doesn't inspire the other person to reply, does it? Why? Because there's already a criticism in there, the tone of my voice, the words I use. So to ask, to check my perceptions, I also need to come from a place of really wanting to understand and to give the other person the benefit of the doubt. I also am unskillful at times, not necessarily on purpose. And I also appreciate when somebody gives me the benefit of the doubt. True or not? Now, sometimes we find it difficult to be with the suffering of someone else, and we like it to go away because, their suffering makes us suffer. We suffer because they suffer. We have the intention to help relieve their suffering, but actually underneath, there's the wish that if they don't suffer anymore, then I feel better. So we are doing it with a self-interest. And in my experience, when we do this, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Because when we suffer, I think we are very sensitive to what kind of energy someone approaches us with. And if they want us not to suffer because our suffering is causing them difficulties, is causing them suffering, it's something like, stop suffering, please, so that I can be happy. It doesn't work like that. If we listen in order to help relieve the suffering, it's with the sole purpose that we would like the other person to be relieved of their suffering, not because of us. And again, if we find it difficult to be with their suffering, we have to look. Why is it difficult to be with the suffering of the other? To understand. And to then look after ourselves in a way that we can take care of our suffering. And then maybe we are able to be with their suffering. At times when we are with somebody who suffers, we just need to be with them, just sitting next to them, breathing, not being overwhelmed by their suffering, not being carried away by their suffering, maybe just an arm around their shoulders, just for them to know that we are there for them, and that's all. I was reading this story about some monastic from the Plum Village tradition, and many years ago, some sisters lived in a small center, and they had a neighbor, and the wife was ill and she was dying. So, whenever he wanted to go shopping, he came to their door to ask one of the sisters to be with his wife. So, they would just sit at her side and breathe and just be there, maybe hold her hand, not really saying much. And one day he came again and he said, I'm really sorry. I always come to ask one of you because Lucy, his wife, Lucy is so calm and peaceful when one of you is there. So this one sister, she spoke to the other sister and said, what do you do? And the sister said, nothing, I just sit there. And the one who had asked her also said, so do I. And then she asked this other sister, are you afraid? And the sister said, no. And this one also said, neither am I. So they could be with her fear. They could just be there. They didn't need to say much. And she was peaceful and at ease. So we don't always need words. Our true presence is already here and soothing. So let us just breathe together, okay? Breathe and smile. And bring our mind home to our body. So we can make ourselves truly present, especially present for ourselves. And maybe we don't need to say anything to ourselves, but just be there. Be with whatever is present in us. Many times our loved ones, our partner, our children, they come to share their suffering with us and we jump into action. We immediately come up with a number of solutions. They just want us to listen to them. That's all. That's more precious than anything else. And always remember, my solutions are my solutions, not theirs. Even though they are very intimately connected to us. Let's imagine that we are faced with a difficult situation. How would we like to be approached? What kind of action or non action would help us to embrace our suffering? It could be a bigger or smaller suffering. So maybe we'll just close our eyes and breathe together. Breathe and smile. Maybe our presence is something that we can offer ourselves. And let's just go to ourselves. How would I like to be approached? And what came up for me this time again is the question, do I understand myself enough? What can I offer myself? So as we pause, as we stop and look deeply, as we sit in meditation, sometimes we may have the realization that inside us there are walls that have been built over the years. And it might feel so hopeless and so despairing, so stuck. But as you continue to follow your breath, know that you don't have to break down that whole wall. If we can just remove one block of stone, we can already see the other side. We don't have to remove every single block of stone all at once. We can do it little by little. And at some point, the foundation will collapse on itself. And that foundation is the foundation of our wrong perceptions about ourselves, about others, about what happened to us, about life. So when we learn to see clearly, to see deeply, the tree for a tree and not the tree for drama through the lens of the past, then in our daily life we will avoid a lot of incorrect or wrong perceptions in those dramas and traumas naturally. We'll be happier, more stable, to be able to go forward in life instead of always being stuck in the past. Have you noticed there are times something happens and if we are crying or screaming or just kind of completely out of our minds, but if we really look deeply, it's not really that particular situation that is making one feel the way one is feeling, but it is all the inner injuries, all the imprints of trauma, the neglect, the woundedness that perhaps we've experienced in our childhood, in our young life. All that just comes back and just kind of breaks us apart. So when we experienced one thing, one event, other events came back through affinity, through association. Remember, we talked about the stored consciousness. Everything is there undercurrent as we go through the day. As we walk like zombies, as we are lost in the screen, as we are always preoccupying our mind, The store consciousness is constantly at work. And all those undercurrents that affect us to our own unawareness. And then somebody said something and suddenly we just lost it. Something happens and you just become out of control. And then you wonder, why? It's because we are not aware. So to be able to love is to become aware, to know what's going on. And first of all, it's in our body. The way we breathe, the way we walk, the sounds of our steps, the sound of our breathing, the sounds of our body. So that we are aware. We suffer so much just because we don't know how to care for ourselves and of course how to care for our loved ones. So again, let us just breathe together, breathe and smile. Learn to smile. Even as you are crying, to follow your breathing. Even as tears roll down your cheeks, learn to be there for your tears. Your tears are sacred. To befriend your thoughts and feelings and to have equanimity towards them as well. And then when you are breathing and smiling in the midst of it all, it's a smile of non-fear, my dear. We learn not to be swept away by anything, including our own thoughts and emotions. We can just breathe and smile, whatever that is arising from within or from without. And we learn also through interbeing that the victim and the perpetrator are not two. In our lives as children, teenagers, as young adults or adults, we all experience some sorts of trauma, some sort of suffering. And some may also go through physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse. And that hurts us deeply without even being conscious of it. We might think that we've processed it, and yet it affects the way we approach relationships, the way we view ourselves and the world. And always we think of the perpetrator as outside of us. My mother, my father, my uncle, my aunt, our culture, our traditions, our society, whatever. Our education system, or the opportunities or our circumstances. But as we practice stopping and deep looking, we realize that we've become the perpetrator of that suffering. The abuse that had taken place one time or several times within a period of time of our life. And it was very difficult, it was very painful, it was very hard, yes. But since then, we've continued to carry it in our thoughts. We've continued to carry it on through our negative thoughts, negative thinking, negative speech, negative bodily actions. So we've kind of perpetuated those sorts of suffering in our life. And in doing so, we've caused those we love a lot of suffering. So when we practice true love, we learn to come back, to look at ourselves with karuna, with compassion. We learn to breathe and smile to ourselves and say, I'm here for you. Help me to take better care of you. Help me to love you. And to really embrace that wounded child. And also to embrace that perpetrator right inside of us. And to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I've hurt myself all these years through my actions, through my speech, through my thoughts. I'm sorry that I've hurt myself and I caused a lot of suffering to others. I am sorry. Now, usually we say thank you and we say sorry a lot, right? But they are just for politeness. But deep inside, when we learn to thank ourselves for the efforts we've made, to thank ourselves for everything that we still have, that we still are, and how far we've come, and who we are becoming. And we say sorry to ourselves for our own unskillfulness. That's true love. That's true healing. So we're going to end the session now to begin the practice, and we will continue the last two elements of true love next Saturday. But for now, we'll do a very short practice which can again help us to cultivate the four elements of true love in ourselves, the four immeasurable minds, the four states of mind, which are Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha. So just sit comfortably and become aware of your posture. Allow your spine to be upright, straight, but relaxed. And gently close your eyes. Become aware of your breath as it flows in and out. And allow your mind to settle on your breath, on the sensations of breathing. Gradually become aware of your body and consciously allow your body to relax. And allow yourself to arrive fully in the here and now, letting go of your projects, your worries. As I breathe in and out, I bring to mind someone that I love. Could be your children, could be your partner, could be your pet, anyone. And become aware of my sincere wish to offer that person, that being, happiness and true friendship. First, I allow the feeling of happiness to arise in me by remembering all the positive conditions I have in my life. The miracle of having a body and being able to breathe the fresh air. Breathing in, I know that I am alive and that life is a gift. Breathing out, I allow myself to smile because I'm alive. Breathing in, I am alive. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I think of the person I love. Breathing out, I offer them my smile. I offer them happiness. All I want them and all I want for them is to be truly happy and at peace. Breathing in, aware of the person I love. Breathing out, offering happiness. Aware of my breath flowing in and out. I bring attention to the suffering I have experienced in my life. And I allow the feeling of self-compassion to arise. I embrace the feeling of hurt in me with all my tenderness and care. As I continue to breathe in and out mindfully, I remember that the other person has also suffered and needs my compassion and understanding. Breathing in, I'm aware of his or her difficulties and pain. Breathing out, I allow the feeling of compassion and understanding to arise in me. I will do my best to understand their suffering and embrace it with tenderness and love. Breathing in, aware of his or her suffering. Breathing out, embracing with tenderness and compassion. Now I bring my attention to the feeling of joy, mudita. I see in my mind's eye the happy face of a young child, or the beauty of blossoms, or waves crashing upon the beach, or birds singing on treetops. Just by evoking memory of joy, the feeling of joy comes up in me right away. Breathing in, I feel joy in this moment. Breathing out, I offer myself a smile. Breathing in, joy of being here and now. Breathing out, smiling. Breathing in, I think of my beloved. Breathing out, I offer him or her my joy and freshness. Breathing in, aware of my beloved. Breathing out, offering joy. As I continue to breathe in and out mindfully, I see that the happiness and suffering of the one I love are my own happiness and suffering. I see that if they are not happy, I cannot be truly happy. And if I am not happy, they also cannot be truly happy. Breathing in, I see that our love connects us at a very deep level. Breathing out, I smile and I allow myself to relax into this. Feeling of connection. Breathing in, connected by love. Breathing out, enjoying my feeling of connection. And you may like to sit for a few more moments in silence, just enjoying the positive feelings that you have been able to generate. And whenever you're ready, you may open your eyes. Your beautiful eyes with a big, big smile.